Nation podcast watchers, Red Raider Nation. It's a football party here on the Scarlet and Black Nation podcast. We are your hosts. I am TJ Kern. That is Blake Hartsfield. Blake, is it safe to say that 2025 has officially surpassed 2008 as the most successful football season in school history?
I think it's close currently. If they win Saturday, absolutely. They're playing and every game that they play from here on out, TJ, is going to be the biggest game in program history. I would say right now they're neck and neck with the 08 team in terms of the greatest season of all time. There was also, my dad will argue as an old school Tech fan, he will argue that there was a season in the late 70s. I want to say it was 77 where they went 11-1 and got a split in the Southwest Conference with Houston. They were 11-0 and lost the last game of the year at home. But this season's right up there with the best of them. And like I said, if they take care of business on Saturday, which I expect them to do, it will be the best season of all time.
We are very excited here on the Scarlet and Black Nation podcast because, Blake, the Red Raiders went into Morgantown and did exactly what they needed to do. They boat raced them. Not even really worth getting into. I mean, it was nasty from the get-go. And
how about running a fake punt?
You dominated your opponents to the tune of, 22 points per win?
I've got a few stats on that here coming up, TJ, but how about that fake punt up 42-0? I mean, McGuire really kind of rubbing West Virginia's face in the dirt there. But no, they take care of business. They dominate West Virginia from start to finish. This game was never in jeopardy. I don't think West Virginia got a first down until like halfway through the second quarter, and their crowd went ballistic for it. But to your point, TJ, they're the first. I've got a few stats prepared here. They're the first team in Big 12 history to notch 8 conference wins by 22 points or more in the same season. So kudos, right? They're not just winning games; they're putting belt to ass on a week-to-week basis. They are the defense, TJ. They are the first team in Big 12 conference history ever to surrender 100 points or fewer during the season in conference play. The closest team was that 09 Nebraska team, which surrendered 105 points in 8 games. And that had a guy by the name of Ndamukong Suh, who was a Heisman finalist, and he was anchoring the middle of that defense, nasty defense at Nebraska. And then, TJ, on a national level, and this is the one that's really kind of eye-opening. I don't know if you've seen this one or not, but Texas Tech is the 6th team in the past 100 years to win at least 11 regular season games by at least 20 points. So 6th team ever to win 11 games by 20 points, joining Nebraska in 1971 national champion, Florida in 2008 national champion, Florida State in 2013 national champion, Alabama in 2018 national champion, Ohio State in 2019 is the only team on that list that didn't win the national championship. So, TJ, they're an elite company. They've had an unbelievable season, and McGuire and his players and staff deserve all of the credit in the world for what they've been able to accomplish.
And speaking of old coach Joey McGuire, Blake, how about a 7-year extension for our guy who at the beginning of the season, we said this was going to be an important year. And we said that if all else fails, we might be looking for a new coach, but give him all the credit in the world, put this team together, was able to coach them up week in and week out, keep them together through the adversity of losing some injuries here and there at the quarterback position, trying to get Baron Morton healthy, get Hammond out there. He gets hurt. Morton comes back. I mean, that people don't understand how hard that is to keep playing different quarterbacks.
Yeah, TJ, we did say before the season that this was an important year for McGuire. And look, I think that there was a couple people who didn't like that on Twitter. We took a couple shots for it. But the reality of it was if he'd have come in with the expectations on this season, with the talent on this roster and turned in a 7-5 or an 8-4 record, 8-4, he might have survived. 7-5, I think he probably would have been gone. But he has earned it. He is now this season, his what's the word I'm looking? His culture that he has established, the presence that he brings to the program, is very clearly a calming force over this football team.
Was the word demeanor?
Yeah, demeanor is a good way to put it, TJ. He's very clearly a player's coach. He's definitely a CEO style of coach where he's a walk around coach and he lets his position coaches kind of do their job and he makes kind of game management decisions, which I think he's gotten much better at over the course of his 4 years here. And trusting his defense, punting the ball this year, I think was important. Um, and look, I mean, they took care of business. They weathered any sort of adversity that popped up, other than the Arizona State game, which we've talked about at length. That despite not having your quarterback, you took the lead. It took kind of a schoolyard, improvisation play from Levitt and Tyson to beat you, but. No, TJ, they were excellent. McGuire's been excellent. He's the only coach in the conference with a winning conference record each of the last 4 years. I think his December record is like 15-4 now, which shows that his teams get better as the year goes on. And then this doesn't really go towards the merit, but I think he deserves some credit for wanting to be here. I don't know if you saw the clip that the football team put out after he signed the extension, but it showed a clip from his opening press conference when he took the job back in 2021 saying, he'd been at Crowley for 5 years and Cedar Hill for 20 and then Baylor for 5, and that he would die at Texas Tech. And then in his press conference on Monday, he got asked a question about, the timeline and the coaching carousel and coaches leaving before the playoffs, specifically around Lane Kiffin and that situation with Ole Miss and LSU. He said, look, I think he gave a really nuanced answer about moving the timeline up that I thought made a lot of sense. But he said, at the end of it, I don't really care. I'm at a place I'm going to be at for the rest of my life, and kind of smiled. And then about 2 hours later, they announced the extension. So well-deserved and credit to Coach McGuire. And I'm really happy that we've got our football coach for the foreseeable future. He's going to be here a long time.
And I got news for those of you around the country that haven't tuned into the Scarlet and Black Nation podcast, but if anybody out there thinks that this is a blimp on the radar, Blake, this is just the beginning
for the least talented team we're going to have
run here at Texas Tech.
This is the least dominant. This is the least talented team that Tech is going to have in the next 5 years. So buckle up, right? Speaking of talent, they had a really good early signing day today. They've checked in with the number 20 high school class in the country, number 1 in the Big 12. It's a little bit of a smaller class, but I think that's by design. They want to bring in obviously some high school talent. It's highlighted by their 2 5-stars, Felix Oho and LaDamian Guyton. A lot of good, I think they've got 6 or 7 4-stars as well at different positions, but TJ, they intend to be a player in this portal that's coming up in January and add, elite college talent to this team as well, particularly at the quarterback position. I think the name to watch early, I've said Hoover. I think that they really like, from what I've heard, is they really like Sorsby out of Cincinnati, and I think that's going to be the first target, which I'm totally fine with. I think Sorsby can play. But yeah, this is not a blimp. This is as we've talked about since OU and Texas left the league, that there was going to need to be a program that stepped up and into that power void, and Tech has done that, and this is the first of many Big 12 championship appearances over the next 5 to 6 years.
Well, the Red Raiders actually clinched a spot in the Big 12 title game before they played, as Arizona beat Arizona State. So it wouldn't have mattered had they slipped up against the West Virginia Mountaineers, but they took care of business, Blake, and they get a rematch against the BYU Cougars in Arlington, down the road from where I'm currently at my apartment. Saturday morning. I hate the 11 a.m. kick again for these two, but hey, it's going to be another home game for the Red Raiders.
We've played really well at 11 a.m. this year, TJ. The Utah game was an 11 a.m. kick. The BYU game was an 11 a.m. kick. The West Virginia game was an 11 a.m. They've been really good at 11.
So, yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to it. But, I mean, for those of us that want to go out and enjoy some beverages, you know what I'm saying? Like 11 a.m. kick is a little tough. But anyway, we're excited. It's going to be the first of many, we hope, appearances into the Big 12 title game. But Blake, this game, you beat them by 20, should have been 40 in Lubbock. What are your thoughts on BYU again? It's hard to beat a team twice. all those
Before I
sayings.
get into it, TJ, what do you think? What do you think about this game?
I just trust this defense, man. I don't think BYU can score on this defense enough. Um, and when we're at full strength on defense, I know David Bailey came out of the game as a precaution. I'm sure he'll be fine, ready to go. But this defense is just one of the most impressive units I've seen in college football in a really long time. And I don't know what the line is. I'm sure you're going to tell me, but I'm pretty sure it's probably pretty similar to what it was last time, maybe even a little higher.
Well, it opened at 12 and a half. It briefly touched 13 and a half, which is what it closed at last time. If you remember when we recorded the pod, it was at 10 and a half, and I said it needed to be closer to 2 touchdowns, and it got there. I think this is going to close at 13 and a half, maybe even 14. It's at 12 and a half currently. Um, Let me ask it to you this way, TJ, and I agree with a lot of what you just said about the defense. What exactly can BYU, you were at the game, right? So
I
what do
was.
you think BYU can even do differently to change this outcome?
They're going to have to figure out how to pass the football. And I don't know that they're going to be able to sustain drives consistently through the air. Bear Brockmeyer, because you can't run on this defense. And that's what they want to do first and foremost.
Yeah, I think you just you're saying the right thing. I would say it the other way around, right? I think that if BYU is going to be competitive in this football game, they have to find a way to run the ball. The problem is the Red Raiders are the best run defense in the country. We've seen this movie once. BYU had 27 carries for 63 yards on the ground in the first. TJ, that's not very good. I mean, that's just not very good. And to your point about they've got to find a way to pass the ball, they can't pass the ball, TJ, because their whole offense and their whole system is predicated on getting into 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, and then Bear can make short throws and keep the chains
Play
moving,
action.
but they don't have a dynamic downfield passing game. And I know that they had the one drive in the fourth quarter where they moved the ball in the air and they scored a touchdown. TJ, we were playing the backups, we were playing a soft shell, and so I don't put any stock into that whatsoever. I just think that, and I don't want to be overconfident, and I'm sure McGuire's going to have this team ready and focused and to play this game at a high level. But you just look at the matchup, and it's the same thing I said the first time. Like, everything BYU wants to do and needs to do, you're elite at, right? They have to run the ball. You don't let people run on you. They have to get into 3rd and short and be efficient and convert third downs at a high clip, and that's something the Red Raiders are really good at getting off the field, other than the Arizona State game. But they don't have Sam Levitt on that team that can run around in the backfield and buy 7 seconds and then throw it 50 yards with his eyes closed and hope Tyson comes up with it, which is essentially what happened in the Arizona State game 4 or 5 times. So I just don't see how BYU can get their feet underneath them in this game. That said, I do think this game will be more competitive longer into the game than it was the first time, right? Ultimately, I think the Red Raiders win and will cover. I've got this at it's 12 and a half. I'll go ahead and give you my first Vegas Blake pick because I was going to include this one. Take the Red Raiders to cover. I think this will end up being something like 34 to 34-17-ish, somewhere in there. I think BYU will probably run a trick play or two and score off of things like that, or get a big play off of things like that, because I think that's they kind of have to do things like that against this defense. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that the Red Raiders are better on both lines of scrimmage. And over the course of the game, that's, as it has in every game that they have played this year, is going to start to wrestle control for Tech. And BYU fans are talking about this being a neutral site. This is not a neutral site game. This is a home game. So look for the Red Raiders to win and cover. And the other thing about it, TJ, is, BYU talks about, oh, we had 3 turnovers and we played our worst game of the year and yada, yada, yada. Okay, yeah, that's true. You're 7th in the country in turnover ratio. The Red Raiders are 4th. So it's also something Tech is very good at, taking the football away. And TJ, I look at it from the perspective of, yeah, BYU might score a little bit more because it's hard for a defense to shut a team out for essentially 2 full games. But the Red Raiders left a lot of meat on the bone in that game. They kicked 6 field goals. So, if Tech finishes an extra drive or two, you're easily in the high 30s in the first game, and that's kind of where I think they're going to end. I think, like I said, something like 34-17, the Red Raiders win. Close for a half. I do think BYU will make it competitive. If for nothing else, I have a lot of respect for that coach, Kalani Sitake, who turned down Penn State, if you saw that story earlier this week. But give me the Red Raiders convincingly, and they cover.
Convincingly, which would mean their first Big 12 championship, Blake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, Blake, college football playoff rankings came out, and thanks to those Aggies down in College Station losing to that whiny orange that neither one of us are fans of.
I was a fan of them that night.
We're pulling for them that night as the Red Raiders bumped into the top four, Blake, which if they take care of business on Saturday would mean a first round bye in the playoffs.
Not only a first round bye, TJ, but more than likely, if you take care of business on Saturday, right, you're going to get a bye because they're not going to move you down from the top four. And TJ, you're going to get to play your next game at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington in the playoff, in the quarterfinals, more than likely, because they always try to keep the historical alignment with the four seeded teams on which bowl they're going to get to play. So if you kind of do this, if you kind of workshop this a little bit, the winner of the Big Ten, Ohio State or Indiana, I think it will be Ohio State, is going to get the Rose Bowl. The winner of the SEC, whether that's Bama or Georgia, I think it's going to be Georgia, is going to get the Sugar Bowl. The loser, which Tech would get the Cotton Bowl because the Big 12 has historically gotten tied into the Cotton Bowl, and then the loser of the Big Ten championship game would get the Orange Bowl down in Miami, and then I think the semifinals are the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl in Georgia, and then the championship game, I believe, is back down in Miami at Hard Rock in the second Orange Bowl, but I might be wrong on that. Point is, if you take care of business, you're probably playing your next two games in basically, Lubbock East, right? And Jones AT&T East. So it's a huge game. You got to take care of business because getting to play an Oregon in Dallas is a huge advantage, or getting to play, an A&M is the only team that you could play that would be a 50-50 crowd, but I don't think there's any way the Aggies jump from 7 to 5 to play you. So you're more than likely playing.
They can't really when they're not in the big. They're not even playing in the title.
So you're probably playing. Or if you win, you probably are staying in the 4 seed and playing Oregon, because I think what they'll do is, assuming Georgia wins, they'd bump Georgia to 2. They'll put the loser of the Big Ten championship game at 3 and leave Tech at 4.
Well, a lot to be determined here on the Scarlet and Black Nation podcast with TJ and Blake. Big 12 championship week, my friend. We both had us with one loss at the beginning of the year. Here we are, one loss. We both had us in Arlington. Here we are. So let's go to my friend Vegas Blake, who had a rough week last week.
2-4, couple of bad. We lost the Iron Bowl by a hook. We had 6.5. It was a 7-point game. Mississippi State fell apart in the second half in their game against Ole Miss, and then Michigan got off to a good start, but took it on the ass a little bit from their arch rivals from Columbus at home. So
championship week, Vegas Blake. Before we get out of here,
yeah. So we're 14-8 on the year, TJ. I got 6 picks this week. I've already given you Tech minus 12.5. Don't need to get into that one. I like Georgia minus 2.5 in a rematch with Alabama in the SEC championship game. I like Ohio State minus 4 against Indiana. Maybe I'm being naive here, TJ. I'm just still not convinced on Indiana. I mean, I know they did. Now, the Oregon game at Oregon is really impressive to me, and I'll give them all the credit in the world. But then I turn around and I look, and I'm like, man, y'all barely survived Penn State. It took the catch of the year for y'all to survive Penn State. So give me Ohio State minus the 4. And then we got 3 NFL picks real quick here for you, TJ. Tomorrow night, if this gets posted tomorrow in time for people to see this, the Cowboys plus 3.5 at the Lions. I like the Bengals on Sunday plus 5.5 at Buffalo. Joe Burrow is back. The Bengals looked really good last week against Baltimore. And then my last pick, I don't frankly understand this line, TJ, but I like the Bears plus 6.5 at Green Bay. I'm not sure how a 9-3 Bears team that's in first place in their division and in the conference is getting basically a touchdown. But they're getting 6.5, so take the Bears.
Well, there it is. There you have it. Vegas Blake's picks for championship week. And we're going to save some basketball talk. We got plenty of that to come. This is a football party here on the Scarlet and Black Nation podcast. And man, cannot wait for Saturday. And Blake, how do we always get out of here, bud?
Wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em. Let's go win a ship, baby. We'll talk to you guys next time.